set is in the books, and now we move on to our second of the day, and our second team of the day that got a bye from the first round of games into the second round. It's the Winter Dogs, the SCC powerhouses from last year that have now come to play for a spot in the Smite Pro League. Set number one, a lot of fun though. The Oni Homies proved why they were this week's favorite to qualify into this same roster spot from the SPL last year. Mifflin joins me on the desk to talk all things set number two. And Miff, I think, again, if we kind of finish our thoughts on our first set of the day and transition those thoughts into our second set of the day, I don't know if we can expect the same top seed versus lower seed style of matchup going into this one. I think Winter Dogs versus Nobody's Favorite is potentially closer than the Oni Homies versus Samsara would be.
Yeah, I'm expecting that the set is very likely to go three. There's a lot of talent on both of these teams, a lot of veteranship on both of these teams. I think the main difference in the first set of the day was experience. That really was what carried the Oni Homies. God, I almost say the Oni Warriors every
single time.
Every single time. It hiccups my brain. I feel like that's what really got them through the early game. That's what transitioned them into the objectives, how they really established their lead. And the Winter Dogs, to be sure, have got experience, but Nobody's Favorite as well have been playing competitive for a very long time.
Yeah, Samsara in our first set of the day definitely showed us that they belong here and they might make some waves on a run down in the lower bracket of this event. Now, this set will be the final non-knockout set of the day. So Winter Dogs, versus Nobody's Favorite, just playing to move on in the winner's bracket and avoid dropping down to the lower bracket. But those final two sets of the day that you see there, Just F6 versus Thunderhead, and then Neighborhood versus Reverse Card, those will be knockout matches later on. And then, of course, the loser of this next match will drop down. They'll play one of our matches tomorrow. Oni Homie versus Funhavers already set for our third set of the day tomorrow. And now you can see how this bracket's starting to fill out just a little bit further. Duck Club has moved on, awaiting the winner of this one, which you see in that second column there, Winter Dogs versus Nobody's Favorite. And so bottom left, those will be the two knockout matches that we have at the end of the broadcast today. Our next set after this one, and then our final set of the day will both be elimination games. And two teams' dreams of reaching the Smite Pro League will unfortunately end by the end of our broadcast here today. But not for this matchup, the Winter Dogs up against Nobody's Favorite. Let's start with the team that got a first round bye, the Winter Dogs, because this is a team that has seen continued success at the SCC level, and their performance in those Smite World Championship qualifiers, the waves that this roster made, is really what gave them the seeding, what gave them the opportunity against some of the other very talented rosters here this weekend. This is a roster, of course, Aquarius, Kiermi, Benny Q, Gamma, and Wowie, a very, very well-rounded roster, Mifflin, that also shows some uniqueness in picks and bans.
Some of them do, right? We're talking about Benny. When we talk about the uniqueness, it's the things like Sun Wukong mid, the Tsukiyomi mids, these high-octane, high-aggressive styles of picks that are really trying to expedite the early game, get involved, start moving in towards those Gold Furies very early on. I think that the Winter Dogs have one distinct advantage going to this set, which is that they have been a team for much longer than Nobody's Favorite. I think Nobody's Favorite was conceived about 2 months ago, just about. El Leon kind of picks up a squad of a lot of talented newcomers to the competitive scene, whereas the Winter Dogs have been playing at the SEC level for a very long time, maintaining very high seeding, second seed overall for this tournament this week as well. And they've got SPL talent behind them. Wowie, we all remember the Wowie versus the world moment that Hindu called, where he's able to turn around a 1 versus 5 base defense. Gamma has been around for just about as long as everybody else. Aquarius was one of the most dominant players back in his SPL days as well. I have very high expectations for Winter Dogs. But that being said, we said it earlier, I think that this is going to be a much closer set than the first one.
But I think it's important, and it's good, Miff, that you point out potential difference in chemistry, right? And you talk about how this Winter Dogs team has been playing together for a while now. And so a lot of the communication has been worked out. Things like that could be a difference maker in a set like this. A team potentially open to some unique picks has, of course, a very smart coach at the helm. Sharks joins me now for the pre-game interview. First and foremost, Sharks, thanks for taking the time and talking to me. And I want to start right there. Feels like from what we learned yesterday from this Nobody's Favorite team, now both of these teams may be open to some uniqueness in the mid lane.
Yeah.
Do you expect some of that in this set?
Look, you could chalk it down to like who's the better janky mid laner, but I don't think that'll happen this set.
No.
I think both teams are good enough to punish bad mid picks,
Sure.
so I don't think that's going to happen.
So what did you learn about this nobody's favorite roster yesterday? Because we haven't seen a lot of film on them. Did you learn anything about them yesterday going into your match today?
Kind of, obviously, everyone memes Chapeau shot calling, but it genuinely won them that set,
That's
right? They do group up a bit early, though. If they try to do that at 15 minutes again, it's not going to work against more experienced teams.
Right.
Maybe. But, yeah. They are good if they get this ball rolling, and we respect that, so
Sure.
we will stop it.
This team goes into this event as the second seed, quoted as the second most likely to move on to the SPL. Is there pressure associated with that for you guys, or are you just playing your game and not worried about it?
No. There's no pressure, I feel.
Sure.
We are the second seed, but I feel like we should be nobody's favorite. On Twitter, Reddit, everything, everyone's like, who the hell are these guys?
Sure.
I'm like, we've been playing for 8-10 months, and I don't know. I don't want to say there's no respect, because there definitely is.
Right.
But I don't think we have that pressure on us at all. I feel like the Duck Club have that guaranteed. They got the fans, man. We got nothing.
This roster with a chip on their shoulder is potentially very, very scary. Thanks for taking the time. I'll let you go get prepped, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
You see how cool his hat is?
No, what's his hat say?
Dude, he's got the Uchiha hat.
If I'm so out of touch,
Oh my
what is it?
god, dude, are you serious?
Is that low-hanging fruit? Should I know that for sure?
It's literally Naruto.
All right, you know what?
It's like the biggest one.
You know what I've done? I've loaded up Naruto 6 times, seen that there's 1,000 episodes, and just said no and haven't bothered. So give me a break on that one. I'm sure someone else out there agrees with me on that. But I think the point of that interview, no pressure for this Winter Dogs team. I always like to ask the pressure question because everyone responds to these types of events differently. We've heard teams that have come into this week saying, we're just going to have fun and see what happens. We've heard from players who are like, yeah, I mean, clearly we want to fight and make it to the SPL. Is the moment too big? According to Coach Sharks there for this Winter Dogs team, this moment not too big for the Winter Dogs. You got to prove it, though, in a matchup up against a nobody's favorite team. That's the name of the team. I'm not being mean. That proved yesterday that jank and in-your-face play style, surrounded by good shot calling, can make a difference. And, of course, El Leon at the forefront of the shot calling and maybe the jank conversation from yesterday.
It's something I touched on yesterday when we introduced this team. Every single team composition that El Leon has lined up has played very similarly. He brings his style of shot calling to every single team, and he forces his teammates to adapt to it. He forces them to play how he wants to, which is why I was so interested to hear Shark say there was El Leon shot calling. That's what won them the game. That's what won them that set. That's how they got as far as they did. Because having played against them so much, it is very clear that that is the style of play that they're bringing. And then we got to hear later on in the interview, I believe it was Schlemmy that said, whatever Leon says, we do. That is so valuable to a team like this. That is so valuable to a shot caller to just have pieces that will listen, even if they disagree with the call. Because as long as everybody is on the same page, the performance is going to be much, much better. That is something that I think is ridiculous that this team has already, that trust in their shot caller, considering how new of a squad this is.
Were you ever a shot caller, Myth? Were you ever the guy that made all the shot calls in your games?
Yeah, I was, because I couldn't play well. My hands are bad, so I had to, if I wanted to be on a team, I had to talk good.
I'm going to return to that. I'm going to interview you after this interview. I've got In My Zen ADC for this Nobody's Favorite team standing by for the pregame interview. All right, In My Zen, you already got one win under your belt so far going into this weekend, looking for your second up against the Winter Dogs today. I asked Coach Sharks a minute ago about this. I'm going to ask you the same thing. Both teams open to some jank, as we'll call it, in the mid lane.
Yeah.
Do you expect more of that in this matchup?
Definitely. Yeah, we didn't, yeah.
That's so different.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of hard to prep because we don't really know what's coming. So we got to really think on the fly and adjust while we're playing pretty much.
And along that line, I think we have talked ad nauseum about El Leon's shot calling.
Right.
Is that as important as we're making it out to seem? Is Leon at the forefront of a lot that goes on in your game?
Yeah, he's definitely our main shot caller, and we trust his calls. So when he calls something, we follow it. Yeah, pretty much.
When you see a Winter Dogs team, across the aisle here, do you feel like your play style as a squad matches up pretty well? Winter Dogs love to scrap and fight. Do you think you guys can play into that pretty well?
Yeah, I think we're less scrappy, actually. I
Sure.
think we're more objective focused. So as long as nothing goes bad early, I think we're pretty good, yeah.
Well, sweet. I'm excited about this one. This one, highly anticipated. Best of luck. I'll let you get back with the team.
Thanks, man.
Sure thing. And so, this nobody's favorite team. I think that's an interesting thread to follow throughout this set, Miff, because the Winter Dogs, of course, can play this objective mindset game, but they love the aggressive run-it-down style of play. They will fight you. They will drag you down with them, and they will knock down, drag out, as I like to call it. And so, what style of gameplay may win the day? We'll have to wait and see. I do want to pick back up with you, though, Miff, on the shot-calling conversation. This is not a meme. I genuinely wonder this. We're touting Leon's shot-calling so much, and Zen, agrees. A lot of it is coming from him, a lot of the decision-making. Is this like a heavy is the head that wears the crown kind of situation? Like, if you are the shot caller, when things are going great, we're loving Leon. If a shot call goes bad in the game today or later this week, is that something that could get in your head?
It definitely is. It's a situation in which a team that has that dedicated shot caller that has so much control over the pace of the game, if they have a bad day, there have been times where your communication shut down. And if you are the key, if in all of your scrims, 5 days a week, 3 hours a night, or however long you play, if it's always been you shot calling and you shut down on day of, nobody else knows how to pick up that slack. Nobody else is able to for your team. It's something that I think Aggro could have spoke to very well, considering that he teamed with LA on a lot. That is an emotional player.
Right.
That is a guy that plays with the hot hand. If he's got stride, if he's got momentum, he is rolling. But if he gets shut down, if he can get emotional, you'll see it in the player cam sometimes. El Leon will get a little bit quieter, and then the team starts to fall apart a little bit. I think that is very important to make sure that he is in the right mental space and just keeps talking no matter what.
The good news. All right, so you gave us a little inside glimpse of what you thought you heard the Oni homies saying. Whether or not
I
that's
did
verifiable
hear
or
them
not.
say
You
it.
did hear them say that, right? I passed Leon earlier on today, and we chatted a little bit, and he yelled at us when we were sitting in the green room just a moment ago. Seems like he's in good spirits. So the mental of the shot caller is in a good spot, and feels like more of a toss-up, this Winter Dogs versus nobody's favorite matchup than maybe the earlier on game, despite how Samsara was able to fight back in a few of those games. And I want to stick with something here that Zen said, and even Shark said in the interview when I asked him about some of the weirder picks we see largely in the mid lane between both of these teams, and how it's just sort of difficult to prepare for that. It almost seems, Miff, like you have to draft the best you can and then just hope that whatever gets thrown at you isn't going to completely throw a wrench in your mix.
Yeah, when you're going for these unorthodox styles of drafts and you know that you've got an unorthodox style, and as does the opposition, it's not so much counterplay, at least from my own personal experience. Yeah, I can guarantee you he's probably listening to like the BFG song from Doom. Like, you know what I mean? Like he is getting in the zone. But to speak to my point again, if you are both playing strange style, it's less so about counterplay than it is about relative value. Is your weird pick legitimately just stronger than theirs? Are you going to line up better?
Right.
Is your game plan better? Or is it just going to lose out? That's kind of the style that I've noticed from these. I've been tossing the freak word around a lot with the picks.
You mean it in a nice way.
Yeah, I mean it in the best way possible.
I wonder if we see Benny Q's pick any sooner than fifth and final throughout this entire, because that's the strategy that the Winter Dogs have adapted in the past. Is we'll pick everything, and Benny Q probably demanding, we're leaving my pick open for last. I don't care what they do or don't ban. I don't care what is or isn't open. I want to be able to pick around what they have. I would say strictly fifth pick average for Benny Q today. I don't know if we see Benny's pick sooner than fifth.
Well, I don't know. If we want to talk about the interviews, Shark said, hey, I'm not expecting to see anything weird here. Both of these teams have got enough experience that these unorthodox picks won't work.
Maybe it's not weird to them.
Oh, you're right. It's a perspective thing.
Right, it's a perspective. To us, it's strange.
Yeah, these guys are weird. I say freak, and they're like, what?
Yeah, well, that's normal, right? We'll answer some of those questions. Watch, this is going to be literal game one. Benny Q, like, first lock.
Yeah, it's going to be Agni.
It's going to be Agni first and foremost. We'll see. A lot of the questions we have for both of these teams about to be answered. Winter Dogs versus nobody's favorite. Remember, not a knockout game, but a game that will send one of these two teams, a set rather, best of three set, where the loser will fall down to the lower bracket of this event. And, of course, the winner will continue on in the upper bracket. Miff recoiling a bit at the Giannis ban. I will say, actually, you know what? I was about to spoil some things. I was about to leak some things, and I'm not going to do that. I'll just say that the Giannis ban wasn't unexpected.
Really? For you?
For nobody's favorite.
I mean, to be sure, nobody's favorite, El Leon, the mid laner, has got a lot of experience on this pick. He has been loving Yanis for years. He's been playing a lot of it in ranked. If you ever tune into his stream, he's probably playing that god. But competitively, with the current itemization for mid mages and how strong they are at the middle portion of the game once they finish up that secondary item, I just don't feel like Giannis is bringing that same level of pressure. And we saw what pressure in mid can net you during that last set. When there was the Morrigan on one side against the standard mage, she was not able to step up to the mid camp. She wasn't able to control that farm, which put them 2-3 levels down consistently in that individual match. I think that Giannis has a lot of similar problems to the Morrigan in that he doesn't really have the best ability to very quickly clear out these new, enhanced, stronger mid camps.
There are a lot of problems, I think, looking just across. If you're nobody's favorite and you're looking across the aisle at the winner, I mean, there are a lot of. We put so much emphasis on Benny Q because of the eclectic style of some of his picks. This dual lane between Gamma and Wowie is very scary. Dashboard and my Zen are going to have to play towards the top of their game. I think jungle, always important, of course, Myth. But you look at a matchup between Kirmi and Schlemmy had a great set for nobody's favorite yesterday. So maybe no surprise that a couple of jungle picks getting taken away by Winter Dogs, 2 out of 3, depending on where that Serket would have gone. Focused on Schlemmy on the other side. And early on yesterday, Myth, we saw Kleena prioritized in the ban column and Amaterasu. So 50% ban rate for the Kleena. Only 25% pick rate, so it's gone unpicked, unbanned a little bit. Amaterasu a little bit higher in the ban column, but nobody's favorite gets 2 of the higher priority picks right off the bat.
And not just high priority picks, but picks that synergize incredibly well. Zen said that he thinks his team is more so focused around objectives, correct? And that's exactly what these 2 picks flourish in. Amaterasu's passive, making anybody deal additional damage when she applies her auto attacks to a target, with Kleena's ability to just double drop ultimate and shred these objectives, is going to add up to a situation where I feel like nobody's favorite is going to try and slow down the early portions of the game. I don't think we're going to see a pre-10-minute gold period based off. Okay, now we might because Soul's so good at objectives, but based off just the top 2 picks, it very well could be nobody's favorite playing around that Pyromancer at the 10-minute mark, where they try and build their lead there.
Soul is pretty good at shredding as well.
She is. And this could be mid, it could be ADC. It's a great flex pick.
Good flex pick. Nobody's favorite will take away a definite mid pick in the Merlin. So standard in the ban column, as far as mid lane presence goes, Persephone and Merlin. And so Benny Q, if he was going to play a standard mage, won't be one of his options. Poseidon gets banned out here. That is something that Leon played yesterday. And so both of these 2 teams now, Myth, and I wondered if this is when we would see the priority. Both mid laners saving their picks towards the back half of the draft, and that is when the Winter Dogs and nobody's favorite have started to identify some of those potential picks. Poseidon on one side, Merlin and Agni on the other, and then a Scylla ban as well. So both mid laners leaving their picks to the end, and both of these 2 teams respectively taking mages off the board.
A lot of targeted bans on both sides. We know that Benny is very capable of playing Merlin. I called out the Agni a little bit earlier for first pick. I didn't think it was actually first pick, but I thought there was potential that the Winter Dogs would look towards that. So nobody's favorite, targeting those very well. And the Winter Dogs have clearly been doing their homework on El Leon, Poseidon, and Scylla. Both picks that he's incredibly comfortable with. But in banning out the favorite standard mages for both of these players, this could be just a situation where we're kind of forced into the jank. We might just look at something like a Tsukiyomi mid. Maybe the Sylvanas rears his head in game 1.
Yeah, Benny Q and Leon want to play standard stuff. They just get banned into the jank all the time. They wish they could play a mage, but they're not able to. We'll see. And it looks like Leon, depending on where this Soul goes, you mentioned it could be ADC, could be mid, but I think given the bans of the Winter Dogs, assuming this Soul goes ADC. Now the Sobek ban is there as well. So Leon is going to get a little bit more data to pick around because the Winter Dogs are going to have to reveal both of their final picks here. And I will stand by it. Regardless of which of these 2 ends up being Benny Q's pick, I'm still counting it as
I knew you were going to say that, bro.
Well, if it gets locked in 4th, you know, who cares on the order? I'm saying I stand by it.
No, you're just right.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you agreeing with me. I don't think that was that crazy of a call. But props to me for a little bit today. Got to get something going. Fenrir, Izanami, and Ardio are the first 3 on this Winter Dogs team here, Myth. What do you like about the 3 picks that are already there for the 2nd seed team?
Assuming that this Fenrir is headed towards support, that is a very high-pressure duo lane already. Izanami should be able to establish lane pressure on her own. Kill pressure comes from the Fenrir himself. And we've seen in the past that the Winter Dogs really like to just leave the solo laner on an island, and RDO is very adept at being left alone. Has sustain in the lane, has great damage output come late. With Breastplate Determination now in the meta, she is nearly unkillable around that second item slot. So I think that legitimately the Winter Dogs have got a composition that just works.
And it is a raw final pick for Benny Q.
Interesting.
And so, Jank, probably not so much from what we have been building it up to be.
Jank
right?
adjacent.
It is a mage, but not one we usually see. The question is, if obviously Benny Q, a very mechanically skilled player, you trust him to hit his Searing Pains anyway. But it's nice if it's made easier. Do you think there's enough on this Winter Dogs team to help set up for some damage from Benny Q?
As long as the communication is there, Susanoo's ultimate guarantees Raul every single time. As long as it said, hey, I'm charging it up, I'm shooting it now, Ra should probably be able to hit that just about every single time. Ragnarok as well, a phenomenal setup tool. Even RDO's stun, AoE setup. So no arguments here. I think that this pick can work out. It's just whether or not the Ra can survive the early game. He's got decent movement speed. The passive of Ra giving you additional movement speed every single time you use one of your abilities, stacking up to 3 times. But that's it. And there is a lot of dive potential on the side of nobody's favorite. Sobek's displacement, Kleena's raw dash ability, Amaterasu's dazzling offensive, all tools that are very hard to deal with for Ra.
Is there still flex potential in your mind, Myth? Ull locked in, and so between Ull and Sol and the rest of the draft around them, do you still feel like Sol or Ull could go to either lane? Are we gonna learn where these two are going, or are you feeling strongly about one of the two over an ADC?
I've got 70% odds. If I were giving like bookie odds, I'd say it's 70% odds that we see Ull in mid. I've seen Leon play Ull so much more often than I've seen him play the Sol. It fits his play style. He loves going for these like twitchy 360 plays, going for these massive axes. It allows him to kind of act as that solo agent, which he's going to have plenty of experience doing with all of his years of playing jungle. I think that it is likely going to be Ull. And then that's going to help out a lot.
Zen is going to be the Sol O agent.
So how much longer to win game?
Spot on. We are killing it.
I'm talking to production here.
No, that was fantastic.
Okay.
So
yeah, for sure.
Let's assume that it's Ull for Leon matching up into the Ra. There's going to be some pressure in that mid lane, Myth. A volley of abilities could set up for some early pressure here with Kleena maybe making early rotations into that lane. How do you think Benny Q has got to play this laning phase?
Safe. He's going to play it pretty far back, I'm thinking. You don't want to take the 1v1 up against Ull. If you could survive the first 2-3 rotations of Ull's abilities, he's going to himself incredibly quickly. That god is very mana-starved. So I think as long as Benny Q is able to survive for the first 4 levels, that's going to be the critical point for him. And then he can start playing a little bit more aggressively. Once that ultimate becomes available, you can start playing around your jungler as well. I think it's going to be a very highly aggressive lane through mid, through nobody's favorite, though. It's up to them to kind of leverage their early aggression.
If this is an early look at a relatively unique jungle matchup as well, Kleena and Susanoo, I don't think this is a one-versus-one that we've seen all that much, if ever. What are power spike expectations here between these two as far as getting active on the map? When do you expect both of these junglers to really start to make an impact?
Susanoo and Kleena have similar trajectories in that it's around that first item finish that you want to start getting involved. Generally, it's going to be that Jotuns. In the 1v1, you probably favor Kleena just because it's a channeled 3-part ability for Susanoo in the first ability, and the Scream can just silence you out of it. The damage trade, you're probably favoring Kleena as well, but it's the ability to dislocate your targets that makes Susanoo so incredibly strong.
Yeah.
If we see this Ull jumping in aggressively consistently, Susanoo should be able to displace him incredibly easily, as well as his ability to kind of just go into these lanes and make use of the beads burning potential of a Ragnarok or something along those lines to set up for his team.
Myth, let's just move on down the map. We're assuming, again, a Sol Sobek lane right up against Izanami, and again, assuming a Fenrir. Feels like Sobek wants to get involved early, wants to find those plucks, set up for some pressure in the lane. But Izanami able to immediately get that pressure off with the wave clear. You're going to have Fenrir there as well, who loves to get aggressive. Do you feel like the Winter Dogs edge out in the aggressive department just a little bit better early on?
I think it's a lot better.
Sure.
I think they've got a lot more clear, a lot more aggressive capacity. But we've seen that Fenrir supports have been a double-edged sword in the past, and that you are so strong in the early that you don't really show respect to your opposition if you're poked down to sub 50%, which is something that could very easily happen when a Soul's on the other side. At level 1, when she's got full heat, her autos hit upwards of 86 damage. Land 5 of them, you just killed somebody. So if Fenrir is able to maintain his HP throughout the early, I think that will transition into a very high-pressure lane for the Winter Dogs. But there is fight-back potential from Nobody's Favorite, just by nature of the Soul dealing so much damage early on.
And Miff, I think there could be a unique game of chess that goes on in this game. You've got objective burn for Nobody's Favorite, but potential objective steal from the Winter Dogs in their mid laner. This one anticipated. Winter Dogs versus Nobody's Favorite, game number 1.
Gormaz, I said on the desk as we were getting ready to go into talking about this set, but this is one of my more anticipated matchups of the weekend because I want to see what the Winter Dogs have adjusted coming from Season 8 until now Season 9. It's J-Mac and Gore and Doug here in game number 1 of our second set of our second day of play. And interesting things all along the way. I mean, we've seen all kinds of brand new picks kind of pop out, things that we saw like 1, maybe 2 of last season, and a couple of items specifically in the solo lane. Now that Warriors Axe has kind of fallen off to the wayside a little bit, we get to see a little bit more diversity in their builds.
Yeah, it's made things a lot more interesting. It's not surprising to see the Vampiric Shroud over there for Aquarius. I guess, as you would just highlight, it's probably not too surprising to see Malachi go for a different start as well. That Vampiric Shroud, this is the one that I'm most interested in this matchup because we've seen Artio, and admittedly we've been seeing Ama kind of get bodied for the first like 7 or so levels, and then she joins team fights or has a jungler come over and all of a sudden it changes. And so Malachi's got a good track record for winning a game because of that. But we'll see whether or not Aquarius and the amount of power that he's going to be able to have controlling this lane changes anything.
What a perfect timing on the tail whip there by Dashboard. Actually cancels out a potential stun that Gamma would have gotten on that Fenrir leap in. Quick little call and reaction there by the support on Nobody's Favorite. And tail whip, not usually the first ability that we see on Sobek's side. Usually it's either the Sickening Strike or the Pluck if you want to get that level 1 kill.
The good news is that it is in that like right area. If you're just trying to clear camps, if you're not trying to fight crazy hard early on, which you're playing into an Iza Fenrir, I don't think they're trying to play hard early on. It's a really good way, like you said, to interrupt a couple of things from Fenrir, as we already seen, but also helps clear some camps and admittedly puts you in a bad spot trying to fight.
Kiermi trying to fight up against Schlemmy, but he will get hit with the stealth through. Leon jumps in, needs the axe toss against Kiermi, needs some extra damage. Axe does confirm, but he misses the shot after Slimmy goes back in. Kiermi is caught in the middle of him, but it's BennyQ who strikes first blood for the Winter Dogs. Nobody's Favorite. Slimmy able to pick up one, but BennyQ coming in big on the raw mid. Double kill to start the game off.
That is pretty much what you want to see. I mean, you know, Mifflin had mentioned it, and it was exactly as he had predicted. That yes, they did, in fact, get aggressive if you're Nobody's Favorite there. Not too surprising, especially given the early game they're going to have. The surprising part, and it's so easy to forget about J-Mac, Rod does a lot of damage with a Celestial Beam really, really fast. And so early on, you already have a huge amount of clear, and you can see that, you know, going up to, so what, 155 base as of right now? And it doesn't seem like a whole ton, but early on in the game, you get hit by one of those, and it's a huge deal. And it was one good auto away. I mean, maybe a body block, maybe something. I don't know what could have happened there to slow Schlemmy down just slightly, or maybe Kiermi lives as well. Either way, you get your mid laner off to the point where he has 2 kills, he's happy.
Oh, Malachi gets pulled back in by Kiermi. It's another big fight over by the blue buff this time around. Kiermi, though, gets caught out because Elion has rotated himself all the way from mid to the solo lane. He'll pick up the kill and finally be able to redeem himself after the fight that happened in mid lane. It puts Nobody's Favorites back on the board once again, tying him up now 2-2 for the kills.
Yeah, but you have to look at specifically, well, not just the gold lead, although the 1,000 and the 1,000 experience is very helpful.
Pretty good.
I was going to say the level 5 already for BennyQ, because that's where Mifflin started highlighting that fights could start on the other side for Winter Dogs, having already won one. It makes things a little more interesting, and potentially going their favor a little bit more. Having that huge beam, a big ult, with some easy setup on the team for him to connect it, means that it's something that I anticipate kind of helping shift in favor of Winter Dogs as time goes on.
A little late on the tail whip there this time by Dashboard to stop Gamma, but you still get to see Gamma being very aggressive on this Fenrir, and that's really what you just want to play this early game. This is where Fenrir really is the strongest. His base damage is absurdly high, getting a stun, and the fact that they stole a red buff, by the way, earlier on, means the Gamma has a little bit of extra damage, and he's going to try and abuse it as hard as he can in this duo lane. But for now, I think my big highlight is that BennyQ, with that first blood, with that double kill, he's already finished a Spear of Desolation, not even 3.5 minutes in the game.
Level 6 has a huge item that gives good flat pin and good power on top of it. Yeah, he's going to hit really hard. Anyone who stands in his way is going to be in trouble. And with Gamma starting to rotate over, I mean, this is just going to be setup city.
This could be a nice big pickup here. He will grab Schlemmy, but get the beads right away. And BennyQ recognizing that they're not going to get that guaranteed snipe, and instead just go ahead and use his damage to clear out the wave instead. But getting beads off of the jungler very early, very important here for Gamma, because he's got to go through quite a few sets of beads, 3 of them to be specific, on the side of nobody's favorite to deal with the presence that Kirmi and Gamma both have on these assassins.
The good news is that they have some like external CC that can capitalize on it, right? So if Gamma gets rid of the beads, all of a sudden the knock up from the Susanoo ult, but also the pull back from Susanoo becomes a lot more impactful. The stun from Aquarius later on can be a little more impactful. It's not as beads burny as some of the teams that we've seen, so someone's going to be getting away more often than not. But now you know Kleena is going to be an easy target for you. If you happen to see Schlemmy and he's getting aggressive, Gamma knows right then and there, at about, what, 30 seconds plus maybe 45, he's going to be able to get in there with his ult, be just fine on getting aggressive. And soon enough, he's going to be super tanky as well, so it's not even going to cost him too much of his health bar to do so.
Yeah, he does already have Gauntlet of Thieves, which has been interesting because up until really this tournament, Gauntlet of Thieves has pretty much been the #1 item for just about every support. It was very rare that we didn't see Gauntlet of Thieves get picked up first item, but it seems that this time around, a lot of supports have been kind of flexing between whether they go with that or whether we see, you know, the Sovereignty Heart Ward rush instead. But this time it will be Gamma going over towards the Thieves Sovereignty for dashboard.
And it is that question, you know, like we just saw in Ares, so like aura items for some Guardians just work better. I mean, it synergizes really well with Ares' passive, things like that. But like, there's that conversation of how many prots do you need? How squishy are you going to be early on? When you go Thebes, you get a lot more health, but you are still pretty easy to kill. It takes just 1 rotation, maybe 2 technically, of some cooldowns, and all of a sudden you're gone. Whereas if you rush the Sov, you rush the Heart Ward, you're going to be able to take a lot more damage early on.
BennyQ, Danger gets plucked and has to use the beads right away. Good presence there by Dashboard. Kirmi a little late to save him, but maybe they can get something here. Pull in by Kirmi up against Leon will force the jump out of the mid laner. Gamma goes in, but Schlemmy goes into a wall, and there's nothing that a Fenrir can do at that point. But Gormizer, I don't know if you noticed me kind of scratching my head there for a moment. I looked over at BennyQ. He's got 2 tier 1 items sitting there right after his flat pen.
He took over Gilgamesh passive, and
could you imagine if that was something you could do? Imagine like Morgan transforming into a level 4 Gilgamesh. You hit level 5 during it and grab your item immediately. If that could happen, that would be wild, actually.
Now, to actually look at this, though, you know, the Lost Artifact start, and you know, that we're used to seeing typically into like Chronos Pendant, I guess, this early on, maybe into a Rod of Tahuti, is something that could be, you know, just that's the item I expect to see built up. Now, the Tiny Trinket, that gives a little bit of lifesteal. Like, you get a little bit more out of that, because it used to be, I think it was, what, 2 years ago, that we got to see a little bit more. So 20 magical power off the Lost Artifact, not too crazy. 20 magical power here, but the 6% lifesteal helps out. They've already got a lot of sustain, and it feels like, again, not an item I'm used to seeing on Raw, period. Most people don't typically build lifesteal on him, but it is an item that for a while was like the mid-starter. You would get just the Tiny Trinket because it provides you enough early on. Not exactly how I expected this cast to go, if I'm going to be honest. I was not prepared for my tier 1 notes. I'm just really happy that it happened to be something that I remember really well. But I'm curious to see what Benny does with this, if he skips an item or if he just wanted them early on. Because technically, I mean, that's 40 power, plus he's now got the lifesteal on top of it. Like, I mean, it's not the most cost-efficient thing in the world, and you're not getting any of the crazy passives that you get from a tier 3. But you do still technically hit harder here, I guess, than you did, you know, without those items.
Yeah, I mean, he spends around, what, like 1,200 gold, gets 40 power, some lifesteal, and some MP5. I mean, I guess you can't complain too much. Maybe he wanted to buy the tier 2 of the Lost Artifact, but didn't quite have enough, so he buys the Tiny Trinket. Who knows what goes on in the mind of BennyQ, but now he does have enough gold to at least get the Restored Artifact. Couple of different options there. Charon's Coin, Rod of Tahuti, Chronos Pendant, kind of being the 3 namely ones there, and all of them potentially viable options for this Raw. We'll see where Benny Q goes. I gotta say,
know-
before you get to your point,
Yeah.
I gotta say the most aesthetically pleasing thing I'm seeing is all of the enhanced buffs on the side of the Winter Dog, all on a respective god. That's just a nice little aesthetic there.
That does, yeah, that does hit the serotonin button in my brain. It hits it very cleanly. But Benny Q's going to start getting aggressive. This is what I'm curious about. And I was actually going to think about potentially going into... Yeah, okay, Gamma. Yeah, you're not getting anything.
That's about it.
Going into something like the Raw to Tahuti specifically for... And we haven't seen as many glyphs over the last few days as I had anticipated. But when I think of, hey, hit someone with a damaging magical ability and it drops extra damage on them, all of a sudden I'm thinking, what could Ra ult do with one of the Tahuti glyphs? Not attack speed. What is it? Calamitous, I think, is the one that drops the meteor?
Yeah.
And that, like, again, it's just a little bit of extra damage, but a 1-4 combo with that could damn near kill anybody on nobody's favorite.
Especially if somebody gets picked up by the Fenrir and they just hold them in place, then you're basically guaranteed to get the little meteor strike at that point. And that's always kind of been the question call of Calamitous Rod to Tahuti is, how are you going to guarantee that meteor hits?
Yeah.
Gods like Scylla, Agni, they're real good for being able to do so. Agni, because he can bomb stun Scylla with Sikkim, can kind of guarantee the damage there. But now that we do have, Fenrir, even Susanoo, who can lock gods down, there's a lot of people that can really hold them in place for if Benny Q wants to go to that item.
It's just, but again, we haven't seen as many of those glyphs. So it's a world I want to live in, but probably not one we're going to live in.
We haven't
right?
experienced it yet.
It's not even that expensive. He might, just throw some gold over there. And look, you bought a tiny trinket. You can afford to get a glyph if you really want to. It'll be fun. But actually, it's the Charon's coin that he picks up, which I will admit was not at the forefront of my mind, but again, good pin early on, good power early on as well, but it's percent pin as opposed to the flat pin that we've gotten used to seeing over the last couple of days, as well as the fact that his passive is pretty solid. It's not the most popular item anymore. There was a period of time where it was the go-to starter for mid, but it's not necessarily bad by any measures, and I think that, especially with how hard Rocket hit, that power and that percent pin is really going to make Dashboard's life, Malachi's life, a lot harder.
One of our first little encounters that we've had with the Obelisk in this set here. Dashboard going down and stealing quite a few flowers. Puts his team one away from being able to pick up the second Obelisk of the game. One thing to note, I don't know if we've kind of pointed out to the fans at home with the Obelisk, the sets of camps that it enhances changes with each rotation. It's on like three different rotations of it. It's always the same 3 every time. So if you know what Hitting Blast, you'll know what to do here. Benny Q gets a nice guaranteed setup snipe on the Dashboard. Gamma wants more, but Gamma gets stopped in his tracks. A nice axe toss out of El Leon will stop the engagement right in its place. And nobody's favorite can retreat back to the Tier 1 tower.
I like the damage. That's the first ult we've seen from Benny Q this game.
Which is wild.
And yeah, he's had it for so long, and it's such a short cooldown. And they're going to go for the Gold Fury after.
Frenzy popped up.
Oh my
Winter
God.
Dogs get the Gold Fury nice and cleanly. A nice Frenzy out of Gamma means that they've got that extra bump and attack speed to really shred through that objective. And thanks to Wowie and how farmed up he's already gotten 2 full items, Winter Dogs able to take a nice and early objective. And this Obelisk hasn't been started up just yet. Instead, it's going to be a fight around it. Benny Q comes up with the credit for the kill. Malachi used the ultimate. It only stuns out Gamma. And now he's caught in the middle of 4. No way to get over the wall. No way to get out of danger. No way to get out of dodge. It's Wowie who picks him up, and Gamma finds a stun up against Slemmy. The dash isn't going to get you far enough, but the silence will make sure that Gamma can't go too much further. And all of this fighting around the Obelisk of all places is going to set up for Gamma to steal the flowers that Dashboard just spent so much time getting himself.
Yeah, they have been dancing around in this. It does take a considerable amount, 10% of your health. So it's not the easiest thing. And you can see Gamma could be a little worried if any rotation happened there. But hey, he gets out of there. They get their Obelisk. They're going to be happy with it. And that's a clean fight for them as well, right? You get a lot of damage. You showcase what your team comp is capable of doing. And then during that fight, even without the Gold Fury, you have to look at how ahead this team is. This is very similar to the conversation we were having with Oni Homies, which really comes down to the fact that it's 6,800, it's 8,500 experience. I mean, this is a team that we have gotten used to seeing in Winter Dogs, not only be at the top of the SCC all of last year, but they gave some of the SPL teams a run for their money during the placements. Oni Homies were one of those teams. And so it's exciting to see what they have to offer, especially up against a team like Nobody's Favorite. I was thinking that this was going to be a lot closer, and when you look at just the kills, it is. But that item difference is really going to be felt, especially by like the Uller and the Soul.
Nobody's Favorite are able to mitigate some of the wounds that Winter Dogs have put out here by taking that Pyromancer. And it's one thing I was about to bring up as the grass were coming up. the level leads across the board. It's basically 1.5 to 2 for everybody. Unlike in the Oni Homies game where it was like a 3 to 4 level lead in 2 rolls and everybody else was pretty much even, Winter Dogs have a lead consistently across the board, and they're doing their best here to abuse it. Gamma jumps in towards that tower yet again, but that tower is standing on its last bricks and will finally crumble at the hands of BennyQ.
And despite what that looked like, the raw beam was not what killed the tower. I just want to throw that out there. It was very,
If only.
it was very graphically cool that it happened at the same time. But yeah, it's very fun to watch. I'm a little perplexed, realistically. I think that I expect a little bit more. Nobody's favorite have hit this weird kind of valley overall in their mountain peaks. I think early game and late game is going to be strong for them, but right here is where they're going to suffer the most. They're able to get some good return damage, they're able to find some fights, but this is the great position for Winter Dogs to be in to win this game.
And this just feels like textbook Aquarius fighting between 2 towers and coming up big for his team. Slemmy gets pulled back in by the Ragnarok. The Frenzy gets popped. Slemmy gets a nice shell and able to kind of hold himself out. But BennyQ is the one who deals the final blow. Take him down.
Oh my God!
2 triple kill for Benny in a heartbeat out there. And no Winter Dogs continue to assert their dominance across the map.
That's like the dream to have happen when you're Raw. They lined up perfectly for him, and he just gets to take them down. That is exactly what you want to see. He's 6-0-1. He's having all time of his life here, and he has not had to break a sweat. I mean, a little bit of pressure early on with that 2v2 where he ends up getting a double kill, but since then, it has just been smooth sailing in the mid lane for BennyQ. And so far, no one's been able to slow him down. I mean, I expect Schlimmy or eventually Leon to be able to give him some trouble, but now he's got such a lead, I don't think he's going to break a sweat.
Well, by the way, Wowie and Zen are literally just playing their own game in the left side of the map. All this fighting is happening towards the right. The Hunters are just doing their own thing. BennyQ gets the dream scenario lined up. He gets 1 kill up against 1 just by stepping in with the flashbang, and then he gets a perfect lineup, only aiming for Malachi most likely, and was just thankful that Dashboard decided to step in and take that shot too. Beautiful triple kill out of Benny to really put the Winter Dogs up. Nearly 10,000 gold, even more experience beyond there. Winter Dogs up only 7-2 in the kills, but this lead has become dangerously high here for Winter Dogs.
You know, I'm going to say this. One of my favorite things about Smite, like a lot of the newer gods are really cool, but sometimes you just need the flashy plays, right? Like sometimes, Raw Beam is not really complicated. It's a long line ability that does a lot of damage, but it looks so cool when you're able to get it in the right position. And that's such a huge ult for them. I mean, that fight is not necessarily getting out of hand for Winter Dogs. It just doesn't seem like they're going to be able to secure as many kills as they would have liked. Benny turning that into a triple kill and the team being able to find so much makes it a lot easier to rotate in and continue these engagements.
One support goes in, misses, one support goes in and gets a set of beads, and it's Gamma who's way more advantageous in this fight as Dashboard is knocked down to 1/3 of his health bar. And the Winter Dogs, after getting a nice fight over on the right side, getting a couple towers after a nice little skirmish there, will freely take yet another objective. Winter Dogs grab the Oni Fury. They extend their lead. They keep this fight going, and now maybe we'll finally see something happen on this left side. Poor Zen just wants to get to safety. And fortunate for him being a soul, and also fortunate, again, that he has a soul that Disapparate nearly saves his life there as BennyQ goes for the snipe. But Zen was still in that ball form, so is immune to the damage that BennyQ probably could have just killed him with.
Yeah, it just goes to show how careful you have to be around any wall, any engagement, any time this Raw's nearby. He's going to have that back pretty soon. Not as fast as we're used to seeing. Not a lot of cooldown in the build, although not really necessary overall for him. So admittedly, it's going to take slightly longer than normal, but slightly longer than normal still. Pretty fast for an ult to be able to come off cooldown, and they get the tier 2 on top of that. I mean, it's just a lot of gold going into their pockets, and not a lot of opportunities so far for nobody's favorite to really fight back. I mean, the only kills have been on the Kirmi so far in retaliation, and they haven't been close to killing anybody, consistently for what feels like 10 minutes now.
That was a lot of commitment to really go for this tier 1 in solo lane. We saw 4 players from nobody's favorite rotate over to guarantee that it goes down. And Aquarius even expends his teleport. I thought maybe that he had, kind of already gone back, upgraded, was going to, teleport up with the rest of his team to maybe push mid lane. And instead, he goes over to tier 1 to defend it from the lone Malachi. And I'm just sitting here going, man, we're 18 minutes in. You guys have a 10,000 plus lead. Who cares about a solo tier 1? But maybe who cares about any of that? Fire Giant down to half health already. It is melting under the weight of Winter Dogs. They've got a Benny Q to secure that one, and they will do so. Winter Dogs get the Fire Giant. They continue the fight forward. Dashboard gets yanked in. He gets picked up. He gets put down. But Gamma is walking through the veil. Schlemmy gets a nice little casualty kill up against Gamma while Aquarius runs down Elion and burns him away. Aquarius with the kill.
I'm going to take the blame there for Gamma's death because I'd absolutely cursed the entire team by pointing out that Kirmi had been the only one that died. But you lose support for support, plus you get the mid kill and you get Fire Giant. Yeah, Winter Dogs are still happy with that, and they might be able to find more Zen. That immunity only lasts so long, and that's a good juke because Benny Q was ready to read that.
Oh, Benny Q had it ready to go. Fortunate for Zen. He zigged when he was supposed to zig. Benny Q maybe thought he would zack there. Tier 2 tower, the last tower standing for nobody's favorite, will stand no more. Winter Dogs are able to topple yet another structure and open up the way to go towards all these Phoenixes. But look how far back the minions are pushed in that left side of the map. Not a chance they're going to be able to really go for that Phoenix just yet. The continued extension of this lead, 14,000 gold up for the Winter Dogs. And only 2 players have hit level 20. And the closest one on nobody's favorite to even come close to that mark is a level 17 Elion and Zen between the mid and carry.
And, I mean, look at the map. No towers left standing on the side of nobody's favorite. That it makes it so much easier for Winter Dogs to be able to just walk on into a Phoenix at this point. They've got 2.5 minutes left on the power play. And so I expect to see them find some aggression. Like you said, though, you know, having the minions push so far back and left, and admittedly at the middle of the map, kind of where the neutral scrimmage line is for Smite, is sitting for both mid and right-hand minions. It is going to take a little bit of time, and this is actually great for nobody's favorite. Burn the timer, try to get some farm, get some gold back into your pockets, and try to make it even fight, because a team, even only 4 members having Fire Giant, still is a lot to handle if they make it under your Phoenix line. You're going to have to be careful with your engages. I think that's where Winter Dogs are at this point. And when you look at the damage numbers, I mean, we talked a lot about Benny Q's build earlier. At this point, he's picked up the Soul Gem. Now he's got a Rod as Tahuti, so he's going to hit even harder with some of that damage. But you've got your Silver Branch, your Chin Size there for Wowie. I think that the 2 carries are going to be able to do a lot, and to the point where Aquarius, that's not the kind of build I expected when I decided to look down at an RDO. But at the same time, they're so far ahead, and he is so unpressured and unworried that this is actually perfect. I mean, he's got a 3-level lead alone in his lane. But with the breastplate, with the helm, everything that you've got in this build already is enough prots to keep you alive and tanky while still being able to give you some power to punch back. And alongside a Divine Ruin, he's now going to be able to get into the backline and really harass some of the, Leon and Myzin, whoever he decides to sit on.
Benny Q throws out a snipe just for the sake of throwing out a snipe, but he's got 40% CDR, so that one will be back up very, very shortly. You can see 20 seconds now. And he just fired that out, by the way. It's barely even a 30-second cooldown on this Raw at this point. Might as well not even be considered an ultimate at this point. Gamma goes in immediately. He'll pick up Malachi, and there's no shot that he's going to make it out of here. And Kirmi, all the while, solo Slemmy in the background. Not a chance that anybody is making it out of this fight. Dashboard and the lurking in the waters, not a chance. Kirmi does go down, but Wowie picks up the double kill against Zen, and it's just Elion and Dashboard to defend up against the Titan, but Benny Q is going to gatekeep their own Titan, and Winter Dogs are going to strike first in the set, taking game number 1.
That is just clean play. I mean, essentially from first blood on, right? It feels like the Winter Dogs have some small advantage. And you watch the gold charts throughout that game, that's really, I think, what's indicative of how they were performing. Always finding farm, always getting gold, always a little bit ahead. And it starts with a double kill in the mid lane. Huge. Maybe not your ideal start, realistically. Benny Q gets ahead super early on, gets his ult first, and yet that didn't matter as much at that time. It was really just how well they were farming. All of a sudden, though, they start fighting in duo lane, they start fighting in solo. Anytime they do engage in any of these other fights, everyone on Winter Dogs was a step ahead. They already had a full item ahead, things like that. And so it really started to spiral out of control. Then Benny Q gets a triple kill and a double snipe, and all of a sudden it feels like things are really, really covered for him.
Yeah, no, Benny Q pretty disgusting on this Raw. A nice little debut for the Laser Chicken himself, and a nice start out here for the Winter Dogs. They take game number 1. Can they close out the set? We'll find out right after.
Sharks in the pregame interview was talking about maybe a little disrespect that this Winter Dogs team was facing online and on Reddit and things like that. People maybe saying they didn't deserve the number 2 seed. This is why this Winter Dogs team got a higher seed in this event. They blow nobody's favorite out of the water in game number 1. And Benny Q is at the forefront of the conversation. You can't discredit the rest of the Winter Dogs. The setup was there. The engage was there. But then the bowling ball that knocked down the pins was Benny Q on this Raw. Mifflin, do you have a similar read on how that game went, where everyone from the Winter Dogs did their job, and it just happened to be Benny Q that was dealing the damage and finishing off the kills?
I think you got to give credit to Benny Q, at least for that early portion of the game, right? Like where we were talking about on the desk, I really thought that it was going to come down to whether or not Benny Q was able to survive the first 4 levels up against this aggressive Uhl mid.
He's getting kills.
Yeah, my man didn't just survive, he thrived.
Oh my goodness. And Kierme nearly survives that. A final auto or 2 from Schlemmy gets it done. But when a Raw at level 3 has already gotten the ball rolling with a couple of kills.
Oh, look at him go.
And then moments like this just continue to pile up. This was like the moment when you talk about how obviously you prefer there to be setup to make the searing pains easier. But Benny Q makes his own setup here, just his positioning, right? He sandwiches himself against the wall and then double snipes for a triple kill. Look, when the Raw is leaving a team fight at full HP and just kind of free casting, life's going to be tough. There was also Wowie, though, Miff, the carry on the other side of these team fights. You need the Izanami to shred those objectives, shred those health bars down, and Wowie was able to do so.
Yeah, he was definitely slamming towers, right? 6,000 damage outputted. I believe it was like a 4 KDA as well. Wowie obviously performing to the standard that we expect of him. You know what is crazy, though?
Tell me.
I think you said that was going to be like an even set, right? You thought it was going to go 3, you know. I think you were part of the disrespect that Shark was talking about.
Are you joking right now?
No.
At the top of this set,
Yeah, go on.
I said, Miff, we think this one could be more competitive. And verbatim, you said, I highly expect this set to go
You didn't
3.
just point at me on the desk.
I pointed at you, and I'm not allowed to do that. That's the Mifflin rule. I'm not allowed to point at you, but I did anyway. You said I said it would be competitive, and I stand by that. I still think
Chat, let's
I still think nobody's favorite can bounce back. I mean, that's a game where a pick, I don't know how much a Raw catches you off guard in mid, but it's not standard. But a specific pick just threw such a wrench in the mix. I expect nobody's favorite to be good enough, not only shot calling, but pick and ban strategy. Maybe you don't win game 2, but it's more, they're in this set. You know what I mean? I stand by it. I still think it's a competitive set.
I agree.
That's disrespectful.
I'm with you, bro.
You can't say that. It's disrespectful to Winter Dogs.
You sound just like Reddit, bro.
Never. And I'm pointing at him again. Never. Say that again. Winter Dogs, a knockdown, drag-out game number 1. It is time for nobody's favorite to bounce back. We're sticking with the same bands, though. If you're the Winter Dogs, why not? You're going to take away the Giannis. Bastet gets banned out as well. I believe it was a Cirquette that was the 3rd and final ban in game 1 for the Winter Dogs, and it will remain as the third and final ban. Persephone as well from Nobody's Favorite, followed up by the Gilgamesh. I suppose BennyQ's Persephone carries enough weight, similar to Giannis for Leon, that we just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, just that damage output as well as its ability to just find these AoE CCs. She's so strong. I think Persephone's ultimate really got buffed by the map change that happened halfway through Season 8. Once these jungle corridors became so much more narrow, that Grasping Death really started to dominate.
Winter Dogs showing that the presence that this Izanami had in game number 1 is something you want to replicate again here in game 2. And so Izanami snags the first pick for the Winter Dogs here. Nobody's Favorite answered back, remember, in game 1 with a couple picks that have been very highly prioritized, whether picks or bans this weekend. They got Amaterasu into Kleena and didn't see much out of either of those picks, Smith. Maybe it's the circumstances happening around them, whatever it may be, but didn't quite see the power that you'd hope when you prioritize them in your first and second pick slot. We're going to run back the Ama. Maybe the Kleena on the other side. We just didn't get to see the objective shred style nature of that team. We didn't get to see that game plan come to fruition.
No, we can run back the exact same commentary from the first desk. I think that Amaterasu and Kleena together do have phenomenal synergies. I think the only thing that bottlenecked Nobody's Favorite from going for that objective style play was getting double kill first blooded at the 2-minute mark, right? Like, it's so hard to keep your feet under you after that, considering how quickly the Winter Dogs were able to accumulate such a large golden experience lead. If anything, Nobody's Favorite, they said, we heard it from In My Zen during the interview, they think they are a slower, objective-focused team, whereas the Winter Dogs are a team that are much more willing to scrap. And I would say that Nobody's Favorite drafted a composition in Game 1 that could have played for the objectives, but instead they decided, with that last Uller lock-in, to start playing that aggressive style. They got dragged into the pacing of the Winter Dogs. As long as they're able to hang back a little bit more, utilize the composition, utilize the strategies that they have been developing for this tournament, I think that Nobody's Favorite can certainly still go for that style of play.
Absolutely agreed. Wild how I'm wrong, though, because BennyQ's pick just got locked in. That's Kabrak in mid for sure.
It could be. It really could be.
I'm joking with my certainty, but I'm not joking in that is a possibility when it comes to BennyQ in the way that this team likes to play. There is a world. I don't know if it's going to be this game, but there is a world, and we'll probably get an idea of what Nobody's Favorite are thinking about what picks remain with their final couple of bans. Daji takes a seat, so does Poseidon on the other side. Winter Dogs back-to-back a couple of bans against Leon in their second ban phase. Poseidon was followed up by Asilla in game 1 for these 2 bans for the Winter Dogs. At least one of those 2 will still be the same here going into game 2. Ho-Yi Myth, a 54% win rate is what I just saw pick so far this weekend. 57% win rate. So Ho-Yi has found success. I think the duel and playmaking capability is something that we've already seen so far. And so Nobody's Favorite in my Zen specifically, be happy to get that on their side. The respect Raban though, Myth.
I guess you gotta.
Right, I mean, Kabrakan, so it's the Fenrir ban that changes up some of that setup, but then you add a Kabrakan to the draft anyway, and there's still plenty of setup for BennyQ. Even you take away the Fenrir, you add the Kabrakan, and the Raw still looks threatening.
Yeah, I mean, the Kabrakan could go mid, could go jungle, could go support, could even head into the soul lane, so it's so hard to hedge your bets there. Sure, you could say you've already removed the Fenrir, so the setup isn't as good for the Searing Pain, but how many times did we see Ragnarok into Searing Pain? It felt like more often than not, BennyQ was kind of just hip-firing those ultimates and finding 2, 3-man targets. Kabrakan obviously can still find a double stun / wall lockdown, should be able to set you up relatively easily. So I think Nobody's Favorite just toss out that Raw ban saying, hey, they could still go back towards it. It was very successful for them last time. Let's go ahead and address this as an issue.
Thoth.
And then Thoth gets, you think Thoth's going to get locked? It's the same thing, if not better.
Same thing.
It's just better, actually.
Well, we're assuming one of these 2 will be BennyQ's picks, unless the Kabrakan throws us for a loop. Nobody's Favorite, Myth, sticking with a similar composition.
I think he's only played Sobek this week so far. I don't think we've seen anything else from Dashboard.
You might be right.
I don't think there's been a single game.
And Sobek is standing out pretty heavily to me. I mean, it was Amaterasu, Kleena, Sobek. I mean, that's the same core 3 from Nobody's Favorite from game 1. Obviously, ADC was Soul, and then you had the Ul mid. So you're going to swap up maybe the carries here, but sort of the core of that team, Myth, the engage, remains the same. Does that concern you?
A little bit. I feel like it's hard to kind of glean a whole lot of information from game 1, considering how quickly it went awry.
Right.
It just snowballed completely out of control, which is going to be the nature of a double kill first blood like we saw. So I think that nobody's favorite kind of. It gives me like confidence that they're willing to go back towards this exact same style of composition, right? They said,
We know where we
okay,
messed up.
we know we messed up. We know where the mistakes were. This is a composition that can obviously work. Let's go ahead and stick with it and see if maybe we can pull out a dub here as long as we keep our play on field clean.
Still wondering if there's some uniqueness that awaits. One of these final two picks.
Oh no!
So yes.
What's it mean?
Right?
What's it mean?
And here's the problem with this team, and this is a good thing. It's not really a problem. A problem if you're picking against them is between a Kabrakan, a Tsukuyomi, and an Erlang Shen. Who knows? It could be because we've
No,
seen,
I got it.
Because we've seen Suku mid, right?
Yeah, we have.
We've also seen Erlang Shen solo. When talking specifically at the Winter Dogs, we've seen
Yeah, hope
Benny
not.
Q play Suku mid.
Yep.
I think we've seen him play Kabrakan mid as well
We
at
have.
some point. I don't think we've seen Erlang Shen mid. So one of those two between Kabrakan and Suku will likely be going into
You want the
mid lane.
breakdown?
Yeah, please.
This is a Mifflin
I'm
guarantee.
giving you time to think about it,
This
and
is
now I'm going to give it to you.
This is a 100%er right here, okay? Artio in the soul lane, Izanami, and Kabrakan in the long lane,
Yep.
Tsukuyomi mid, Erlang Shen jungle. That is a guarantee.
Am I still batting 100% on Benny Q picking last with the, I think we've determined that yes, right? Even though it's in the fourth
you
pick
are
slot.
taking a dub. I'm surprised you're still patting yourself on the back about it.
I literally have to. I can't with anything else. ESET, the final pick here. So we do get some uniqueness in the mid lane here in game number 2. ESET in mid for nobody's favorite. Tsukuyomi mid for the Winter Dogs. Again, if our read is correct,
It's got to be.
it's got to be.
It's got to be.
We have seen Benny Q play Tsukuyomi mid. If it is Tsukuyomi mid, Miff, is that a difficult matchup in your eyes for this ESET, or do you think ESET might have the edge?
The early is going to favor Tsukuyomi pretty heavily, but once ESET has got the Dispel Magic, the third ability, the Silence, Kusari Gama, the stun from Tsukuyomi, wow, I can't believe I had that off the top of my head. That came out of somewhere in the back of my
I can't
brain.
believe you're still patting yourself on
Oh
the
my God, I have to. Let me have this. Once that becomes the play, it's going to be Kusari Gama gets silenced out very consistently, and it becomes a poke war in the lane. Tsukuyomi has a little bit more range. It's very easy for him to apply his poke damage, whereas ESET's Spirit Ball, being her longest range ability, is going to be generally avoidable. So I think it's more so the counterpick ultimate matchup. Tsukuyomi is an all-in engagement god. If he wants a kill, he's using the Piercing Moonlight to close gap and sticking close to you. What is ESET going to do in that situation? Drop Circle Protection. She's got damage mitigation. You're going to land the middle of her ultimate. She's going to drop a lot of damage on you and then heal up a lot of it as well. So I think that's going to make it very hard for the Winter Dogs mid laner, if it is Tsukuyomi, to figure out when he wants to engage these fights.
Yeah, it's got to be so important because it's Erlang Shen, Kabrak, and Artio. You look at those three, want to be in your face. They want to be on top of you in these team fights. Of course, Piercing Moonlight allows that on a little bit more of a consistent basis. But to your point, it's all in. When you're in, you're in. You got to get the kill while you're there. Do you think that this nobody's favorite team has the ability to kite away from a lot of the engage that this Winter Dogs team is going to be throwing at them?
Yeah, I think that Sobek is one of the more versatile picks in that you can either have him be that dedicated initiator for your team, utilizing Pluck to dislocate enemies, or you can just kind of have him hovering in the back line, using Tail Whip, making sure that Kabrakans have a harder time closing gap, or Tsukuyomi can't finish off some of these abilities. The self-peel of ESET obviously incredibly strong as well, and it fits that objective style that Zen was talking
Will
about.
the number 2 seed get the 2-0 win? You got to go down to game 2 to find out.
Man, people wonder why I love watching Winter Dog games so much. It's because you get drafts and compositions like this. Nobody else is out there playing Tsukuyomi mid. Well, I was going to say nobody's really playing Kabrakan support, but we've seen that a few times throughout here. But it's always an interesting coin toss with Winter Dogs. Jimek and Gormizer here in game number 2 with Doug as the observer. And over into the solo lane, we are seeing Malachi go away from the sigil that he went last time, instead going back to the now more traditional Death's Toll.
Yeah, and honestly, I like this a little more than what he did last time around. Hopefully, this build is going to be a little bit more solid. Last game, we didn't get to see a lot out of Malachi, but didn't talk about him a whole ton. Outside of the very beginning of the game, as it transitioned, he never really got to be that big impact player. I'm also going to say, as someone who knows that it is dangerous to do this, props to Mifflin, because his 100% guarantee was actually right this time.
He did get it right this
which
time.
is like, well, I would argue is actually good studying, because this is what Winter, like they've run, I would argue, this exact composition before that we've seen in the SCC at least once, because they like running this mid 3v3 of the Erlang, Suku, and the Kabraka.
We have seen you know, we talk about how we see the Tsukiyomi mid, we've seen the Kabrakan mid, we've seen an Erlong Shen mid, though it wasn't out of Benny Q. That one was Meerkat way back during the Armada days when he ran that one. That was a wild set to begin with there. So again, you never know what kind of coin the Winter Dogs are going to flip here when it comes to their drafts, but Mifflin does get the guarantee. He can pat himself on the back. He gets the correct guess this time around. Maybe redeem himself from the Sylvanas one yesterday, but here in game number 2, a minute in, finally against I almost want to try and block it out of my brain, but it was such a fun set to see, getting a Sylvanas mid on like day 1 of the play-ins of all things here. And it's even funnier is that Elion went out and tweeted later on, I think it was like either early this morning or kind of late last night. He's like, all right, that's enough Sylvanas mid for me. I'm starting to see me hitting autos in my dreams.
Hey, you know what? It's not. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. I wouldn't mind seeing it more. I just like Sylvanas. I think he brings good CC. Well, so does ESET. So Leon here, I expect to see a little bit more out of this. It was an unfortunate double kill scenario for them. And you gotta be real careful here if you don't want to see it again. Yeah, that damage from Benny Q is nothing to scoff at. They're gonna get away alive, theoretically, this time, but it is definitely something that I think they have to kind of keep in mind. If Leon and Schlemmy fall behind one more time, Benny Q's just gonna start running rampant again.
Benny's really feeling himself, doing the triple back bait taunt in the middle of the lane. Dashboard does have a way to interrupt those tremors. Probably the most important thing going up against the Kabrakan is having an easy way to stop that ability, because otherwise you're going to eat an immense amount of damage. One of the harder hitting abilities, one of the most obnoxious abilities in the game to get stuck on, especially early on. Again, you can't buy boots, haven't been able to in such a long time. It was one of the most devastating level 1 abilities, even if you had a boots 1, because it just keeps pulling you back in. Just when you thought you were out of the tremors, it pulls you back in.
It gets you, and it gets you good. And it can do it. I mean, like that, like not this kind of build, but in the right hands, sometimes it does do a lot of damage early on, and still it's enough. Really, you know, you get a good 1-2 smack this early on as well. That's going to be more than enough. As you can see, the tremors, you know, again, just it's small, but it's that 0.5 seconds and how long that you end up stuck in it that really ends up making it do. Well, what is just an ultimately frustrating amount of damage, especially when it's followed up with presumably stun into potentially walls early on. Yeah, it's too much to try and handle from a Kabrakan. Luckily, In My Zen doesn't have to worry about that. He has Elite.
I remember some of the kind of early obnoxious days where Kabrakans would get like Gem of Isolation, and that was basically guaranteed like just a stun or a root at that point. Not necessarily stuff, but it's basically a root at that point because there's no way you're getting out of Tremors with a Gem of Isolation. Hope to the good lords we don't see that today, but Gamma will go in aggressive against Zen. He'll get those beads instantly off that carry, and now those will go on cooldown for just shy of 3 minutes, where Zen is going to be a little less safe in duo.
Yeah, that's one of those cooldowns. Admittedly, Blink is maybe the most equitable trade, right? You got Blink for beads, but realistically, that's a lot of damage that's going to be on the table.
Kirimi doesn't get the taunt off in time. It's a lot expended to try and get him. He'll finally get that 9 turns blessing. He'll juke as much damage as he can, waiting for that heal. He'll finally get through and avoids damage enough to get a Blink through. Somehow, Kirimi just got away from 3 people, and he set ultimate and the Veils out of Schlemmy.
That's nuts. I'm supposed to have words. I'm supposed to be able to talk really well after that. That was just good from Kirimi. Manages to avoid the combat long enough for that Blink. Like, if he got hit by anything in that, he's dead just because of the merit that he's not able to get that distance between him and everybody else. That is a good Blink. Only really one because there's no Blink for Schlemmy, so that works out really well in his favor. Gets a great heal. I mean, that was absolutely nuts. And it's all about where he's positioned throughout all of this, right? So he takes a lot of damage early on, but it is walking between the wall and the Veil while this heal comes off. And watch that Blink because it never gets procced, and it's just enough wiggle room for him to get out of there. That's nuts.
If that Veil was even 1 unit further to the left,
it's hitting.
That's hitting. But not only does he get away from the Veil, he sidesteps that Spirit Ball that was also going to connect him. That would have been that kill there.
Yeah.
You saw how much he really wanted. You saw how many CCs hit him right as he tried to get the initial taunt. I mean, he got hit by Pluck and Dispel Magic at the exact same time, and that basically cancels that out right away. Then you finally get to the tail end there. Just insane play is really all that I can chalk that up to for Kirimi. being able to juke out all those abilities and stay out of combat long enough to blink, get his heal, get out alive. Dashboard does interrupt the stun out of Tsukiyomi, but he now gets trapped between a wall, a Kabrakan, a Tsukiyomi into the back line. Not enough protection for El Leon to get out of there, and Slimmy may not have enough of his own. He's getting ran at by Gamwell. Benny's getting ran at by Dashboard. Another stun interrupted once again by Dashboard, and Kirmi wants to try and get the kill, but now Zen has made the rotation. This should be a nice and easy kill on there, but it's a juke instead. The turtle gets him out while Gamma chases all the way to the depths of the jungle to take down Schlemmy.
Yeah, he was not letting that one go. Look, I empathize very heavily with tunnel vision. I die to it a lot. Gamma is more than happy right now that he got that kill and he got out of there alive. Just to make sure, he shuts down the jungle. Already a level deficit there. Kirmi has that advantage. And now that's going to be, taken to the next level. It's 2 levels in mid. I mean, it's a really big deal for Kirmi and BDQ right now. Just a solid start. Not quite as clean as it was in game number 1 with a beautiful double kill going the way of BDQ. But they're doing exactly what they need to do. They're shutting down Leon. They're keeping control of Schlemmy. And Dashboard is lucky to get that return kill. Mainly because it's all about having to use every single one of his cooldowns. A little bit more health or some mana or damage. And I think that blows up into something a lot bigger.
Gormizer, this is illegal. Gamma picked up Mystical Mail first item on Kabrakan support. That was supposed to be a solo lane item. We don't even see it in solo anymore, but Gamma's picked it up first.
Now here, as someone who, actually, I was going to say who plays support a lot. I haven't played Kabrakan support in years, like literally.
Almost ever?
I very much avoid playing this god. And it's just because he wants to play hyper aggressive. That's what Gamma's doing.
He's going to be very aggressive towards this red buff. They do secure for Benny Q.
Good walls.
And he picks up just in time for that piercing moonlight to slam through. The walls hold him back, but Benny Q goes down yet again. Another fantastic rotation by Zen. But now Kirmi is here. The taunt is good. Elion is down. And Dashboard is caught on the wrong side of the map, being chased out by 3. Wowie will go in to try and block him for as much as possible. But Dashboard is just playing ring around the rosy here to try and keep alive as long as he can. How good is the Benny Hill music going to keep him going here? He'll get away for some time. Kirmi continuing the chase, and Dashboard should go down at this point. A good pen by Kirmi. That should guarantee it, but we're just waiting for those cooldowns to come through. It won't be fast enough. Finally, Kirmi does close them.
Now, I was waiting on one of 2 things. One is that Gamma, at any point, could have popped his 1, got a move speed increase, and chased him down a little faster. Or the pin, and we got the pin first. And we got to see what it could do. Plus, it gives a kill over to Kirmi. He's now 3-0. Feels really solid for your jungler to be doing as well as they are right now. And it's opening up a lot of opportunities and kind of showcases that nobody's favored. I mean, that was a very proactive play, trying to get into the jungle, get aggressive, get some farm back, and potentially get a kill. It didn't work out, and they keep falling a little bit further behind every time. And so I like seeing them try to get hands-on, but unfortunately for them, it's just not working out. At this point, I'm starting to think of how can they control a Gold Fury. Luckily, they have Circle of Protection. They should be able to control a Gold Fury if they can get a couple of kills.
And he gets caught again. The spell magic is good to silence him out. He loses a lot of his health. The veil is torn open, and Benny Q able to get 1 before he finally goes down. That piercing moonlight will not be able to get anything for him. Dashboard takes him down yet again, and Benny Q has been the primary target of this nobody's favorite squad. They have spent so many resources to kill him time and time again. But WinterDog still able to maintain this lead, 3,500 plus gold, getting close to 4K, and the 4,000 experience that they've been able to amount in just 9 minutes.
Now, really what I want to talk about is the fact that Leon, admittedly, that's a worthwhile trade. Benny Q is worth more. He's a higher level, has more gold. Killing him off is a big deal. When you look at the KDAs, though, one's 0-3-3, the other one's 1-3-3. So, hey, you know what? Benny Q's doing a little better as of right now. He's getting focused out, but he at least got a kill that time around. I expect to see a little bit more of that, right? It's going to be harder to kill him off as time goes on, just due to the kit that Tsukiyomi brings and how I expect to see Benny Q start playing. But they're committing and almost over-committing on nobody's favor to be able to kill him off. It's going to be a big deal if they can continue do it, but I don't know how consistent it's going to be.
Good Spirit Ball out of Leon, saves his life. Well, only for a moment. Piercing Moonlight will deal the last hit there. Benny Q under that tier 1 tower, and it's 3 versus Dashboard, and he has no chance of getting a kill here. I was going to say, great Spirit Ball by El Leon saves his life, but then Benny Q does show up, so does Schlemmy. But he thinks twice about walking face first into Gamma.
Yeah, Gamma is just trying to stun, destroy, whatever, anybody who walks in his way. And that's the main problem I see right here. You know, Dashboard is going to be king of the setup for the team on nobody's favorite right now. And we've gotten some really good plucks and some good knockups, good control. But there just isn't the follow-up yet from the rest of the team. While Kiermi can engage, BennyQ can engage, Gamma can engage. When Aquarius is here, guess what? He can engage. You've got 4 different starters for the Winter Dogs that can just jump in and cause a fight to happen whenever they decide that it should happen. And outside of a stray Spirit Ball really finding a good hit and maybe Schlimmy jumping out of a wall at somebody, I mean, there's not really as many options until Malachi gets there outside of Dashboard to kick things off for nobody's favorite.
With how much focus that Elion has taken, he's opted for some very early defense in his kit. A Stone of Binding, an item that got a little bit of a buff for some extra protections added towards itself. And now we'll see it here on ESET, who's really a perfect contender for an item like this. I mean, you got 2 different CCs to really proc that passive.
Yeah, it feels just so much better when you have that much. Well, maybe just CC.
What is Benny doing over here? Why is Benny between the towers and solo lane? Not just that, diving under solo lane tower. If I'm Malachi, I'm screeching at my team right now.
Solo lane tier 2, by the way. Diving solo lane tier 2. And now Gamma's in trouble trying to control 3.
Okay, well, Gamma will go down to at least 1 trade, but Kiermi wants a big taunt, and he gets stunned out yet again right after it goes through. He needs a little bit extra. The heal is good. Needs a moment to get out, but he will not find it. Schlemmy turns around, and they pick off 2 of the Winter Dogs for the false rotation of the mid laner. Gold Fury is up, but nobody on nobody's favorite wants to go for it.
You have 2 dead, and BennyQ was just on the right side of the map. I'm actually frustrated by that. That should have been a Gold Fury. You're back and behind in gold. It's about to get exacerbated because of the Pyromancer. That feels like a huge misstep for nobody's favorites here. I think that they're going to start feeling the burn. That's a good fight, and I don't want to take that away from them. I just think that there should have been way more on the back end of it. You can't allow that opportunity to be available because now Winter Dogs are still in a position to be able to fight forward. Granted, grand scheme, circle of protection, still something that is down at the time, so maybe not worthwhile if you think it could get stolen away, but ultimately something that helps secure these objectives. So if you waited and you were trying to engage on, say, a Gold Fury like right now, then it would be a great way to secure it for yourselves.
But
this objective just should not be here.
Since nobody's favorite doesn't go for the Gold Fury, it's instead Winter Dogs who go for the objective. They go for the kill on Dashboard. The Sobek's not making it out, and neither is the Fury. Winter Dogs pick up both of those, but they don't get to take the Obelisk at the very end of the day because that one does get taken out in the process there. But, I mean, Winter Dogs capitalizing on the misplay of nobody's favorite, not going for that objective.
And now, I mean, again, it was something that was teetering around 3,000 gold. It's not necessarily like spiraling completely out of control, but you do not want the number of gold at 13 and a half minutes in to be above 2K if you can help it. You really need to be able to manage that, and unfortunately a lot's being stolen away. You've just barely been able to get the Obelisk in a lot of these moments, finally being able to secure one for yourself. And nobody's favorite are definitely taking steps that are in the right direction, but there are definitely a few things that if they had been able to clean up a little bit more, this would be a lot more manageable. Still, they're in a position. They just got a good kill onto Kiermi, which was a huge deal. They shut down Gamma as well. And if you can find more of those in the next coming fights, then the next few objectives should be a lot easier for you, especially with Circle of Protection on your side.
We'll get the Artio Ama slap box in the solo lane, but kind of looking across the board at items and whatnot, Malachi a little bit further behind in his build compared to Aquarius, who you can see Aquarius is winning out these trades. The sustain that this Artio has is really allowing Aqua to just continuously bully out in the solo lane. That tier 1 tower is already gone. It's the only tower that's fallen so far this game, where last game as we were kind of approaching this point, there were 3, maybe 4 towers already gone.
Yeah, so admittedly they've slowed the pace down and kept things a lot more equal throughout all of this, but the problem is you look at level leads once again, and this was the conversation last time. In My Zin and Wowie are equal. And they're the only 2 throughout this entire game. 2 levels there for Gamma, 2 levels there for BennyQ, and then 1 level, although maybe it's closer to about half a level there for Kiermi, and then 1 level for Aquarius that is teetering closer to 1.5. So sharing some experience, I want to say, between the 2 of them. And that allows them to get more aggressive. They don't have to worry about objectives on the left-hand side. They can play this right-hand side of the map where they already have the advantage.
Beads off of Aquarius, and Schlemmy is stuck between 3 different players, and he's trying to find an escape route to go out. And fortunate for him, he does find a small little gap to dash out of that wall and meet back up with Elion on the safety of the opposite side of the jungle, away from this 4-man death ball that is the Winter Dogs. Make that 5-man as Wowie even rotates over. And this mid-tier 1 tower should go down. No contest, not even an opportunity for nobody's favorite to go through. But Dashboard blinks in, gets the plug against Gamma stuck. Spirit Vault inside the Suns. He will go down to Slemmy, who dashes in a piercing moonlight out of BennyQ to try and delay his life, to try and get some of the damage out there. BennyQ will live through the scream, even through the Caltrops, get the final hit against Slemmy, and BennyQ lives on to see another day.
And at this point, I mean, you still got 3 really healthy tank bars and minions. You could continue getting aggressive, at least in the jungle. You can see Kirimi stripping away experience, potentially try to push or force a fight out of it. In the 3v3, that's going to get a little more awkward, though, just because of the range that is left on nobody's favorite. But with 2 dead, it's a very clean reset, very good pickup overall for Winter Dogs. And you can really start to see this. Last game looked a lot into the itemization. The only reason there's not too much to talk about because they've just got the lead. You can see tier 3s completed, where there are tier 2s still being purchased on the side of nobody's favorite. A tier 2 picked up for BennyQ, straight up over where Leon is, so a full item ahead for him. And that's where this gold lead is really starting to manifest. It's not necessarily insane items that are getting built and maybe potentially weirder builds. It is just the fact that they are taking all of this power and staying alive. And when you have a moment like this, BennyQ needs to die 10 times out of 10 if you are in this scenario. Like, you cannot allow him to live. He uses his ult incredibly well, and then his cooldowns are just perfect. That Aegis to dodge out the damage, let someone come in, be a little bit of peel, but after getting the Caltrops down, I mean, it's just nuts. How do you handle that when he just outplays you?
And the only reason he does live is that damage mitigation on the ultimate, using it during the entire charge of Malachi's ult. Gives him just enough, and not just that, the Soul Leader there, that extra little bit of lifesteal, keeping him alive in that fight. And as you say, a perfectly timed Aegis body blocking Schlemmy on the Caltrops, and gives him the opportunity to get out alive. Dashboard with another pluck and another set of beads that he's going to strip away. Kirimi now without them, and it's now a 3 versus 4 as Slemmy is sitting inside the wall. Elion gets a nice heal from his ultimate, and Kirimi will go down. Doesn't have enough benefit from the heal. Elion low. BennyQ well off to the side, throws the couch up, but Aqua is stuck under the tower. He'll be plucked to guarantee that he goes down, and Malachi credited to the kill. And it's finally nobody's favorite getting an advantageous fight.
Now, the last time they did 2 of these, the quote-unquote misplay afterward was like every objective that was still available ends up going to Winter Dogs. Luckily for them, yes, there's still a lot of objectives available. Winter Dogs don't have the capabilities of burning them down, and that opens up the conversation here for nobody's favorite. They don't have Circle of Protection, so a Fire Giant right now is definitely going to be missed. But a Primal Fury, a Pyromancer, those are much more easily accomplished.
We do see a teleport in by Malachi, and finally nobody's favorite can try and get one of these objectives. Wowie is here, but he's a little too late in noticing that they're going for that Gold Fury. Right as he walks up to the camp, it goes down. And you saw Slemmy hunting in that wall. So nobody's favorite finally get their first objective, but an immediate response by Winter Dogs. They grabbed the Pyromancer to try and mitigate some of that bleed. 6,000 gold up for the Winter Dogs, about 7K experience, which has dwindled a little bit from what it was near 9, almost 10,000 just moments ago.
But you have to look at where it's manifesting, right? You've still got, everybody pretty close within a level for the most part, 2 levels there for Gamma. BennyQ's 3 levels up. A second ago it was 4, but we just saw Leon tick over to 16. And that is a huge problem. I mean, you've got a level 19 assassin on the other side who is getting to your backline consistently and really controlling them and corralling them, versus nobody's favorite who, as of right now, we haven't got to see the big punch back that they're capable of. That last engagement happens under a tower. Things go really well for them, but they have essentially a 6th man dealing damage for them and punishing the Winter Dogs. When it comes to this FG fight, this is going to be big to either find picks or show up as a team.
If I'm not mistaken, can we get a golden hand to see on Benny as he goes back to base real quick? I think 3,200 is the magic number to upgrade both the starter and go for his Heartseeker. And he will at least upgrade one of them. It will be the Heartseeker first out. And he will have enough for the Bluestones. Maybe I was off just a tad bit on my prediction there. Or maybe he's kind of debating which of the 2 he wants to go. It said it will be the Bluestone.
Yep.
So hold on to that one first. So it will not be the Heartseeker.
He needs like 50 more gold.
Yeah, let's say he needed like 100 when he went back to base. It's one of those where it's like, guys, I just need 1 camp to get me there. But it will be the Bluestone Brute, so getting that starter upgraded a little bit sooner.
He really is in that. Unfortunate for him. He had to come out, clear up, and actually he's going to go ahead for the engagement. Dashboard's in trouble.
Dashboard under half health as he now is able to charge Prey away, get back to the safety of his team. but a lot expended to
Yeah,
try
it's 2 ults.
and get him out. In my Zen and Dashboard both ulting. Gamma using his just to cut off one path.
Okay.
But no relics expended yet. Frenzy now here is down. Winterdog started the Fire Giant. Dashboard is up, but Dashboard's got to be careful, and so does Aquarius. Loses a lot of health. Schlemmy is inside the wall and slowly losing some health as he sits in there. 2 Veils opened up, and that's both the ultimates down for the jungler as Gamma is just channeling those tremors, and Dashboard has nowhere to go.
Yeah, Schlemmy had to leave. You can see, you had mentioned the health bar going down. He had to run away in mid, and now you're at a low health bar, not able to get away. And if Kiermi can continue this chase, one good pin is all it's going to take. Schlemmy's going to have good jukes. Circle of Protection's still up, and that's a huge deal for nobody's favorite. When you're looking at the objective, that is the one that can try to steal it away, and Leon just needs to be protected if this Fire Giant continues.
Leon needs to be zoned away. Malachi loses a lot of his health. Spirit Ball off the mark by El Leon. Fire Giant still going on here. They've got to be careful. They've got to pull away from this.
They're getting low.
If they're not going to confirm it, instead, Circle of Protection will be a little too far back to help out. It's 2 who go down instantly. Zen will be able to help and take Slemmy down, or Slemmy will get 1 here. Kiermi will be the one to take down the jungler, though. And In My Zen still alive and fairly healthy. Ultimate up in a few seconds. Nice little bounce there to hold Wowie back. But the Winterdogs kind of hold on to that fire, maybe a little too long.
Yeah, that's really what it happens, right? They take a little too much damage. When they finally engage, unfortunately, Benny's relatively low, but same thing for Aqua, Gamma, Kiermi. It wasn't exactly the cleanest engagement they could have wanted, but they still win the fight the way they would have liked. Benny Q might not get FG if they do decide to hard commit to it, and that would be not quite as devastating. I mean, Wowie getting it's really the important detail right now, and he's going to be fine. They don't have to worry about circle protection. Suns are up, Dashboard and Zen are right here. This isn't as guaranteed as they'd like.
Now Wowie pushed up right by the ring. He'll get plucked through and sent into a wall, so luckily for him, he hasn't had to take too much damage from the fire. Unfortunately for Dashboard, he's stuck in the middle of 3 and in that Fire Giant pit. They're holding this FG for as long as they can. Unfortunately, they have to pull it before Benny Q comes up, and Malachi grabs Gamma, but Malachi will fall shortly after to Kiermi, and it's now Aquarius versus En My Zen. And fortunate for Zen, he does have a wall that he can jump right over, and Aquarius will have to watch as he goes by, but 3 now going to stand with Fire Giants.
Happy moments here for Winterdogs, right? Wowie still has it, Aquarius still has it, so you have a frontliner who can heal up already inherently in the kit, as well as has the Fire Giant buff and is a Guardian, so should be able to tank up a lot of these objectives for you to push, and Wowie should be able to shred them not only with that build, but with this buff alongside his belt to make sure that they get that extra push power that they need. 4 towers still standing on the side of nobody's favorite, and so that's a lot of gold that the Winterdogs are going to be able to pick up that is just sitting on the map, which makes the gold lead they do have even more ridiculous to think about because it is all bid and farm outside of the towers. Normally, you get something approaching 10K because you knock down a few tier 2s. So this has been solid from them so far. And the next couple of minutes are really just going to be in their wheelhouse. The biggest upset is going to be whether or not they can engage the way they want to. It's been really good, you know, counter engagement so far from nobody's favorite. Sometimes a little slow, but they've got good ways to slow them down, stuns, things like that. It just hasn't been consistent enough.
Oni Fury should be a nice and easy prize here for Winterdogs after their fight on that right-hand side. 3 still with Fire Giant. Oni Fury goes down, and what a perfect opportunity for them to try and utilize this Fury and get some wave pressure across the map. That right side is so heavily pushed out for nobody's favorite. There's no chance they'll be able to go up to that side. So instead, Winterdogs divert their attention to the left side tier 2 tower. That one goes down to 2,000 more gold between those 2 towers. Add it to the pockets of the Winterdogs. Add another 1,500 as they strip away the mid T2.
Yeah, this is going to continue their onslaught. And I actually like this. Normally, and this is always a trap to get caught in, it really depends. They've got 2 minutes left on the power play. How do you spend that time when there are 4 towers up, the Titan's still going to be relatively tanky, and they have a ton of gold, but they're going to go ahead and secure every single objective. Sometimes you can get trapped. You burn away your power play trying to get into a Phoenix and never successfully getting it, and then all of a sudden you don't have any buff and nothing to do with it, and there'd still be towers up. Now they've got a minute and a half to play with. Maybe it's going to be closer to a minute by the time any of them actually get close to do anything with this. And they're going to be able to spend all that gold and set themselves up for at least a Phoenix Siege and cause some trouble for nobody's favorite, being a real thorn in the side.
Serrated Edge finished by Benny Q as he goes back to base, and fully upgrades those beads to the temporal beads, gives him a little bit of extra cooldown reduction on his abilities whenever he pops out. He'll knock 3 seconds off. A nice homage to the olden days of beads whenever
that's
you
what I was
sound this.
thinking.
Man, the days where you would be like Habwa, you'd throw out your water hands, and you pop beads, immediately throw out another one right at them. I miss those days. I'm glad we get to see this item back in Smite. And I'm very excited to see how Benny can utilize them in this fight.
Very rare is the time you get to see an aggressive beads, but whenever there's a 3-second cooldown on the line,
pretty good.
Sometimes you throw out an aggressive beads. You don't need the CC immunity. You just want the 3 seconds off. I doubt we're going to end up seeing that. I think Benny Q has to be a little more careful. Might still end up using the beads, but it'll probably pay dividends for them. And again, they have 30 seconds left on this power play to get aggressive on this Phoenix. I like the engage.
But it's a frenzy, and Malachi is already under half, and so is Gamma. He goes down instantly in a circle of protection to heal everybody back up except for Slemmy. He'll fall to the might of Kirmi. Benny and Aqua running through the backline. Elion at a sliver of health, and it's Wowie to put him in the dirt. Double kill for the Hunter. Left side Phoenix gone, and only Zen to defend up against 4. But I'm not sure that he has the damage capable of doing so. It's Winter Dogs, the former SCC powerhouse, coming up big here in Game 2 and taking the set over nobody's favorite.
And you know, we didn't talk about him a lot. I think a little bit there at the end for the sieging. Wowie was 4-0-8. He affected 12 kills, didn't die. I mean, that was a really good game from Wowie. Very clean and crisp from him. Of course, there's a lot of flashy plays happening in the mid, but I think him being able to have that kind of stable performance is very solid for them. All around, that game just works out so well for the Winter Dogs. I mean, early on, you're a lightning rod for aggression if you're Benny Q, because everybody wants to kill you, especially after that Raw game. And unfortunately, it just spirals. You know, you're watching the gold lead very similar to what the Oni homies were doing earlier. It just continues to grow and grow and grow for the Winter Dogs. They get 3-4 level gaps in some scenarios, at least 2 for everybody at one point. And I keep flashing back to that Gold Fury. You get a really good fight from nobody's favorite, and you know, you have 4 available. There's only 3 guys left on the other side, and 2 of them are on the other side of the map, and you just saw them in a fight with your solo laner. To me, that screams aggression, that you should go on that objective and equalize the gold. And because they didn't do that, it opened up way too much and created a much larger gap in favor of Winter Dogs.
Winter Dogs do come up with a big Game 2 and a big set win here to keep their winners bracket dreams alive. How they'll be able to perform as the rest of the weekend goes on, we'll have to find out. But we're going to take it to a break and bring it right back to the desk.
Feels like the Winter Dogs could just do no wrong in this set. A 2-0 win in the first set of the week for the number 2 seed is a successful one, and the Winter Dogs will move on to the next round of the upper bracket after a convincing win over nobody's favorite, who will head on down to the losers bracket, and we'll look to continue their run later on here this week. Just felt like the game plan for the Winter Dogs, whether it was game 1 or here in game 2, was just a little bit better. Mifflin joins me to break down game 2, break down the rest of the set. And Miff, I think this is admittedly not what we expected as far as set length. We expected maybe a bit more back and forth.
Well, maybe
it could go longer. Yep, just me. But I think you always were going to give the edge to the Winter Dogs, whether it was a 2-0 win or a 2-1 win. Winter Dogs came in as favorites, and this game, as well as game 1, really showed us why.
Yeah, I think so. It just felt like they had a more concise plan. They were able to execute on it a lot more consistently as well. I got a chance to talk to Gore right after that game, and he said, man, there was just like some trepidation from nobody's favorite, where there were some opportunities where they could go towards Gold Furies, where they could have tried to make some more pushes after finding a couple of kills, but they were playing very cautiously. And I think it might have been a byproduct from game 1, where they were just a little bit concerned with how quickly things got out of hand. They didn't want to leave things up to risk, but in a situation like this, you kind of have to be willing to make some calculated risks. And I didn't see that from nobody's favorite here today. Winter Dogs, it didn't feel like they had to make any risk whatsoever, did it? I mean, everything they did was just working.
It's funny. Benny Q gets his back stopped and then immediately makes nobody's favorite pay. The most unfortunate lower third of all time. I have to imagine that was double-digit HP that Benny Q was able to at least live through there for just a moment. And part of what we were talking about in picks and bans was whether or not the Winter Dogs would be able to close gap on the back line of nobody's favorite. 4 of the 5 picks wanting to be in melee range to deal all of that damage. This Winter Dogs team, Miff, did not have much of a problem. The piercing moonlights from Benny Q on the Tsukiyomi mid seemed to hit the right note throughout this game.
Yeah, the counterplay I was expecting was just circle protection every single time we see piercing moonlight, but Benny Q was playing very intelligently around that cooldown. It was, circle protection's down, see you later, kid. Probably shouldn't use that until I was piercing moonlighting you. And it was just simple, right? Benny Q controls the mid lane. I thought there was a lot of pressure differential through the soul lane as well. I felt like Malachi wasn't quite able to keep up with these rotations. And at the end of the day, that's a clean dub.
A look at the post-game stats for the second and final game of this set. Kiermi put together a fantastic performance there on the Erlong Shen.
Sheesh.
Obviously, when Benny Q is playing some of the more unique picks, that's where a lot of the conversation pieces will go, but Kiermi was very consistent throughout this set. Put together a wonderful game number 2 on the Erlong Shen. Benny Q still able to put together near 20,000 damage on Tsukiyomi mid, and that's always going to be a great boon to your cause there. But I think, moving forward here, Miff, this Winter Dogs team in a fantastic spot to kind of keep teams on their toes when it comes to picks and bans.
Yeah, maybe Reddit and Twitch chat will put some respect on them so Shark doesn't have to feel so bad, man. They're the second seed for a reason. That was a dominant performance. It was very reminiscent of what we saw in the first set of the day. It just felt like a battle of experience, a team that has been playing together for much longer. We're capable of just kind of pushing their leads a lot more easily.
We mentioned Kiermi, the jungler for this Winter Dogs team. He is standing by with me now for the post-game interview. Kiermi, congrats on the dub, and thanks for standing by with me now.
Thank you for having me.
First thoughts, Benny Q playing Tsukiyomi mid here. That's normally a pick reserved for the jungle. Are you feeling a little pressure to step up your game?
None at all. Well, actually, yeah. I did feel I personally played pretty poorly this set. I missed a lot of abilities, still getting used to the LAN, and there's a lot of pressure on it as well. However, all my teammates played really well. Benny Tsukiyomi, he kind of just felt like he wanted to have some fun, and he thought that would be the most fun pick because they took the Clio away from him.
Well, talk to me a little bit about there's one specific moment in game 2 that kind of stands out. Your miraculous escape. You got 3 members of this team, running you down. you had the happy feet in that moment.
Yeah.
You dodged everything out.
Yeah, I really thought I was dead, but I don't know what happened. They must have missed too many abilities. I think
Yeah.
unfortunately Schlemmy must have missed his second ult or something. But
Yeah.
that was so nuts because
It's all on you.
we had so much we got so much farm off of that for free.
Yep.
Like they just don't have ults for the next 2 minutes.
It was an awesome play to watch you guys make. What do you think just worked well for you guys here in this matchup? I mean, it was a quick 2-0, game one, pretty steamrolly. This game felt similar there towards the end. Why do you think you guys had such an edge in this game?
I think the biggest thing is we were a lot more confident and like comfortable in our play. We didn't fall into their like bloodbath playstyle, similar to like what Nika was talking about in his set.
Right.
We just played farm and we got better control over the obelisks and the scorpions, and that just gave us free gold leads, even if like we didn't have kills. So
Yeah.
we just played the game better.
Well, look, your game plan worked out perfectly. 2-0 win. Thanks for your time, and
Thank you very
best of
much.
luck in your future games.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey, look, when you're playing with confidence like that, you realize your game plan's going to work out. Going to be difficult to take down a team like that. The Winter Dogs start off their weekend in great fashion. And I like, you know, it's always fun. I love when I'm able to ask about like a specific moment where, you know, an example of Kirmi dodging out all the abilities, staying alive. And to us, we think, well, to me at least, I think that's just a really cool play. You know, he just lives, gets away with a sliver of HP. But then to get, you know, even a further glimpse of that actually mattered a lot because we got all this fun. Like how little moments to us actually end up having a pretty big impact, Miff, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, when I'm watching that, I see, oh man, Schlemmy's like missing some abilities, right? Like what he said, but he just getting that little added step of how it affected the game, how it changed the game state, how things kind of shift from that point. I think is really cool to see, and it's kind of nuts that he's got the recall for that. Had you asked me that question from any set that I played, right, I wouldn't be able to.
Which just happens so often for you, right?
Yeah, I just be popping off. You know how it is. It's just another day in the office.
Too many big plays to ever remember one specific play. Every play you make.
That's right.
It's a big one. We are officially done with half of our day here, and as such, we are starting to fill out a little bit of our schedule for tomorrow. The final two matchups we have today, Just F6 versus Thunderhead, as well as the Neighborhood versus Reverse card. Remember, both of these two matchups will be knockout games. So all four of these teams lost their games yesterday. Two of them, unfortunately, after our next two sets, will be headed home. But filling out now the last two games for tomorrow, we have all of those winner teams that you see on top of the bracket there. Oni Homies versus Fun Havers, Winter Dogs versus the Duck Club as well. Those will be two sets that we have going on tomorrow. What else we'll be seeing tomorrow is what we're about to find out. Bottom left of your screen, Just F6 versus Thunderhead, the Neighborhood versus Reverse card in a knockout match. And so now, Miff, for these four teams in our next two sets of the day, pressure is at an all-time high. It's such a buzzword. You know, we talk to players about pressure, what's mounting, you know, those sorts of things. If you want to play in the Smite Pro League, you got to win this one, and then every single set you play for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, this is where things get exciting, man. Pressure can do one of two things. It can either crush you or it can turn you into a diamond, right? What kind of players are we going to have here today? How are they going to respond to this added weight of, hey, if we lose, everything we've worked towards up until this point, traveling out here, it really does become meaningless. Like, you either qualified in the SPL or you go home. That's the two sides of the coin. So I'm very excited to see this match. I think we're going to see very distinctive shift-ups in some of these team styles as they try to adapt to this new high-pressure scenario.
And remember, like, you know, I look at this next matchup that we're going to get into, Just F6 versus Thunderhead. Just F6, a team that has this roster has stuck together through thick and thin, through success, through, I mean, failure is pretty harsh, but through wins and losses is probably a better way of looking at it. This Thunderhead team starting to put the pieces together. Lots of storylines to follow in our next matchup. Congrats to Winter Dogs for winning this one. Just F6 versus Thunderhead, our first knockout match of the weekend, coming up next.